Special guest here with us, Michael Tresca of Unilever. Of course, India, one of your most strategic markets for Unilever. Thank you very much for joining us on CNBC TV 18. What would you expect from Prime Minister Modi's visit to the UK? He's the first Prime Minister in almost a decade to have visited the country. In terms of tangible outcomes, what is your expectation?
I think they are going to discuss the most important things when it comes to the development between the two regions, you could say. And it's not only UK, it becomes very much Europe in that sense. And what I'm really looking forward is the whole discussion about digital India and the digital situation in Europe, and figuring out what can they do in order to help and learn from each other.
You know, you've been attending the Prabodhan conference for many, many years now, and on both sides, CEOs' expectations around building on this partnership, on trying to sort of get the impediments out of the way. In your experience of investing in India as Unilever, what do you think continue to be the big concerns that you would like the government to address from a policy perspective?
I think infrastructure becomes, for us, I would say, the biggest issue, to make sure that the whole issue of electricity, internet, either it's broadband or mobile internet, because digital living is such a strong movement and trend. And then the whole area, the rural areas, which I mean is so important for us, to figuring out the whole issue of hygiene, nutrition, clean water, toilets, etc., which I know that Mr. Modi is personally involved in. I think that is important to move.
Let me ask you about what you're seeing as far as global growth headwinds are concerned, and it's looking a bit weak at this point in time, whether it's the IMF or it's the OECD. Global growth forecasts have been cut. What does that mean for companies like Unilever? What are you seeing in terms of consumption, and specifically for emerging markets like India? What is your own sense in terms of the resilience?
I think the emerging markets are the driver for the moment, particularly in our business when it comes to consumption. And I believe that India and China and the surrounding countries will be such an important driver in this rather volatile world, where you can see you cannot really plan, because you have to take a little day by day. But still we see good trends and good development and growth in both China and India.
You know, you're talking about China and India, so let me ask you specifically about China, because there are a lot of concerns about growth slowing down in China and what that would mean as far as global growth in itself is concerned. You're saying that you're not really seeing any visible signs of a significant slowdown as far as your business is concerned in China?
Not, I mean, there is a slowdown overall, but still on a high level. So there is growth in China, and there are pockets of growth, and perhaps there are less of growth in the coastline, and then you have to go into the 3- and 4th-tier cities and figuring out how to get more consumption. But I mean, there are so fantastic opportunities in China, so I wouldn't say there will always be growth, but there will always be opportunities.
How would you stack up India versus China? And this becomes the inevitable comparison, and especially in the context of the Prime Minister's Make in India mission. I mean, China really has been the hub as far as manufacturing is concerned for the world. And as the Prime Minister sort of pushes the Make in India dream forward, what do you think is going to be the big stumbling block when we talk about India?
Still infrastructure, infrastructure, infrastructure. But I think it's also interesting to see that the whole information technology that is a big hub in India. I think all of us outsource a lot of IT services to India. But I think, again, when it comes to the development and the digital era, go to China and learn. I go to China. I don't go to the US to learn. I go to China to learn. And I would say a quarter of all the biggest digital companies in the world are Chinese. So I mean, digital living, if you want digital living and learn, you go to China.
So if you want to understand digital living, go to China. What would you come to India for specifically?
IT, learn professional IT. Learn also how to address the big part of the consumers in the rural area. because there we have learned through our Shakti women, we have 80,000 women that penetrating 160,000 villages and reach 4 million households. So in that sense, we also, where we learn how to teach and wash hands, India is our prime example. Clean water, how we can provide clean water. There's a lot of these things that you can learn in India, much, much more than in China.
So let me end by asking you, in terms, and everyone's going to be talking about the headlines that will emerge from Prime Minister Modi's visit here to the UK. And of course, 60,000 people in Wembley Stadium will be the big one. But outside of that, from a business, trade and investment perspective, what would qualify this visit as a success?
Well, I think it's more to give the confidence that India is moving according to the wishes of Prime Minister Modi. One thing is, of course, to have the ambitions. The other thing is show evidence that it's actually going in the right direction, because that will drag on investors, that will drag on penetration, because people are always a little hesitant. They are interested to know the progress, not only the ambition. But I think the ambitions are great, and I'm looking forward to see the evidence as well.
As a long-term strategic investor in India, do you see a significant difference? Do you see a visible, perceptible change in the operating environment? What is the sense that you get from your team in India?
I think there is more confidence, and I think there is feeling good factors that are spreading. But again, of course, there is so huge stumbling blocks, not the least in the infrastructure, to make sure that more and more people feel that they're part of society.
Michael Tresca, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much for joining us here on CNBC TV 18. Well, guys, you heard it from a long-term strategic investor committed to India. But as Michael Tresca just pointed out, the aspiration and the ambition that's been articulated by Prime Minister Modi gives investors confidence, but they would like to see it being translated into action on the ground. For now, I hand it back to you, and we'll, of course, be back with more exclusive interviews from the UK.
All right, Shireen.